Business Conversion and Development Authority owns two of the sites various groups are backing for a new airport for Metro Manila and surrounding areas, Clark and Sangli. JICA, the Japan International Cooperation Agency, has recommended Sangli as the new NAIA over other possibilities in Manila Bay, Laguna Lake, and elsewhere. What happens to Clark if it isn't made the so-called main gateway? We'll talk with the BCDA president about Clark and his other projects. And later in the program, we'll talk with an airport planner and consultant about how and why NAIA should be redesigned so it can stay where it is. With us first, BCDA President Arnel Casanova. Arnel, thank you very much for joining us.
Oh, thank you for having me here.
So let's talk first about this JICA study that says it studied where Metro Manila's new airport should be, and it says it's going to be Sangli. You've talked a lot about, and a lot of your talk has been about Clark.
Yes.
What happens to Clark if it's not going to be the main gateway?
I still think that Clark is very relevant and still needed. Most of the countries have developed with multiple airports. In fact, Beijing is building their second airport. And you already see how big the Beijing airport is. Shanghai has two. So I think as an economic driver, we would need two airports actually. So regardless of whether Manila or Clark will be the gateway, we will still need the infrastructure.
Are you still going to lobby to be the main gateway, or it doesn't really matter?
It doesn't really matter to us. That's why we have master plans for the creation of Clark as a new metropolitan area. Because the infrastructure is really vital for economic development.
Now, you have a lot of ambitious plans for Clark. I guess it's your biggest asset.
Yes.
But for example, in the airline space, a lot of the small airlines are very excited about Clark in the beginning, but you've had some of them pull back a bit or at least slow down their plans there. AirAsia, for example, very excited in the beginning. Now they're focusing on Manila. That's why they bought Zester.
Yes.
What does that say about Clark's prospects as an airport?
I still think that most of the budget airlines are actually operating in Clark. So that's a niche that the Clark could actually focus on. And in fact, legacy carriers are also moving in. In fact, Qatar is operating there, although Emirates had stopped. But I think the interest of the airlines will always be there, but the infrastructure must catch up with the demand. And also, we have to be very clear about the regulatory framework on how the airlines would be welcomed in this country. So, but in terms of infrastructure, of which we are quite interested in and we've been doing, I think Clark is a very low-hanging fruit that we could actually deliver for the country.
A lot of this infrastructure, especially I think airports, is chicken and egg.
Yes.
Do you have if you don't have the flights, then you're not going to have the use of the airline of the airport. If you don't build the airport, you're not going to get the flights.
Yes.
Where do you invest first? Where are you now?
Well, I think for us, we're looking ahead, and then instead of worrying about the development of the airport itself, we're actually building a city, a new metropolitan area. Central Luzon, known to many, is populated by 12 million people, with a growth rate of about 2.14%, higher than the national average. So with or without a master plan or the airport, that area would be huge. It would be a new metropolitan area next to Manila.
You're talking about this Green City project of yours. This is going to be a 9,000 hectare project.
Yes.
First, phase 1 is going to be a little over 1,000 hectares.
Yeah.
You're telling me you can bid out that first phase within the year?
Yes, yes. Well, we've been doing this for the last 20 years. You see Bonifacio Global City.
That was 400 hectares.
Yes, yes.
This is going to be more than twice that size.
Yes.
Of course, the real estate market now, I would even say hotter than it was then.
Yes.
What kinds of prices are you expecting for this 1,000 hectares?
Well, of course, we do not expect the price as high as the Bonifacio Global City, but there is a competitive advantage of this area because this is the first metropolitan area or urban development that is a completely special economic zone. Clark is 35,000 hectares with a free port zone and a special economic zone. With an
meaning tax incentives for locators.
Yes.
Yeah.
we're hoping that the development will come in, and there is so much interest already.
So so locators there don't need to get PESA approval building per building?
Yes, because it's already a special economic zone by law, Republic Act 7227, and amended by RA 9400. So the tax regime is very clear in that area. And also that's the area where 100% owned company could actually locate.
100% foreign-owned company?
Yes, because it's a special economic zone. So we could expect more interest for local and even global players to come in.
So all those people complaining about the constitutional restriction on foreign ownership just need to head there?
Yes, yes.
Have all the big real estate companies talked to you about that? I know the terms of reference are not out yet.
Yes.
But would I be wrong to assume they're already talking to you about it?
Yes, they're actually interested. Well, in fact, you could see the interest of major real estate developers. They're land banking in Central Luzon already. You see the development of the Ayalas in Porac. That's about 1,000 hectares also. So, and then you have other companies moving in Central Luzon because simply the demographics will tell you that the demand will be there.
Now, you're in the news recently because of Camp John Hay, yes. A much older privatization happening in the late 1996, I think. 14 years after a kind of compromise or restructuring agreement, you filed an estafa case against them, alleging, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, that while they were not paying BCDA or the government, they were paying themselves dividends.
Yes.
Those restructuring agreements were signed by BCDA. They went through Office of the President, Office of Government Corporate Counsel. I think at one time, Secretary Babe Singson was head of BCDA at that time. Why are you questioning it now?
Well, because belatedly, we have found out that they have actually misrepresented their finances to BCDA. The reason for the restructuring were their claim that they were losing financially. Then when we investigated their financials, we found out that they have been declaring dividends in those years. So in 1998, 99, and 2000, those were the years that they've asked for the deferment of the lease worth 425 million in 1998, and then another 425 million in 1999, another 425 million in 2000. But in those years, three consecutive years, they were also declaring dividends worth 1.2 billion to their shareholders and to their affiliates. That
certainly looks bad. We'll get back to that in a bit. But wasn't part of the reason for the restructuring agreement the fact that BCDA was not able to deliver all of Camp John Hay, all of its deliverables at the agreed upon times?
Well, we were able to cure that, actually. Well, of course, there were some delays, but the BCDA were able to faithfully comply with all its obligations. But what's important is in those years that they've been claiming that they've been losing money, and they were claiming that it's the fault of BCDA for failing to deliver our obligations, they were already declaring dividends. So it's really fraudulent in our mind.
Everybody who was involved then, BCDA, Office of the President, Office of the Government Corporate Counsel, they did not know that dividends were being paid?
Yes, yes. It appears that, the BCDA was not aware that they were declaring dividends.
If CH DevCo, Camp John Hay Development Co., is able to pinpoint an officer in any of these agencies that knew about it, will you include them in the estafa case?
Well, that is quite speculative. But, well, unless, of course, there's a conspiracy to defraud government. But so far as we know, there's been misrepresentation on the part of DevCo, not on the part of BCDA.
I guess what's interesting about it is that if you're going to, shall we say, steal some money, you wouldn't declare a dividend, right? Because you'd have to file an SEC report and report the dividend so that the record of the dividend is there. They should have just pocketed the money. Doesn't it strike you as strange that doesn't that weaken the case for saying that they defrauded or that they deceived the government?
Actually, they haven't been filing their audited financial statements from 2000 for almost 10 years. We've been trying to look for those records, and fortunately, we were able to recover and to discover those records on those 3 years. After that, there had been no filing of audited financial statements. That's actually one of our complaints in SEC, that this company had been operating multi-billion projects, and yet they are not filing audited financial statements to the SEC.
Meanwhile, while this estafa case is going on, you're actually in arbitration now.
Yes.
Because you've rescinded that contract, and they're questioning that, of course. Isn't that arbitration about to come to an end?
Yes, we're expecting that the results of the arbitration would come out any day now. Both parties have submitted their position papers, and we're expecting that the arbitration tribunal would eventually come up with their decision.
If you win that, is it worth dropping the estafa case?
Well, that's another case, because estafa case is a criminal case. So it's once the Department of Justice had determined a probable cause of a criminal offense committed against the state, then it's the prerogative of the Department of Justice.
If the arbitration decides that the rescinding is correct and legal, what will you do with Camp John Hay?
Well, definitely, it would depend on the decision of the arbitration tribunal. If the decision allows us to take possession of the property again, then of course we're going to enforce that and eventually redevelop the area so that it could serve as a vehicle for economic development in northern Luzon.
Bid it out again.
Well, that's one thing that we have to consider. Probably we'll take a look at the contracts that CJ's DevCo had entered into, because we have to look at the third parties who had entered in contracts with CJ's DevCo. We want to determine the rights and obligations of BCDA insofar as those contracts are concerned.
One of the things that's been hanging for a long time is the SC-Tex contract. Metro Pacific got this in 2009. That's under the Arroyo administration. Under Aquino administration, it's been renegotiated, I think, twice. And a few months ago, the government says, yes, they've been renegotiated. Terms are better for the government, but we're going to subject it to a Swiss challenge. Metro Pacific is saying that's unfair. We've already renegotiated 2 or 3 times. We've negotiated once and renegotiated twice. Do you think the government is going to the president is going to stick to his guns and insist on a Swiss challenge?
Well, let's put it this way. The president's interest is always a national interest. So if the president feels that his approval and his of the contract would depend on those principles, one is based on transparency, and second is what is the best for the government.
That's a yes. Arnel Casanova of the BCDA, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you very much.
Thanks,
Coco.
Arnel.
Thank you.
We're taking a short break. More Inside Business when we come back. Stay with us.